Are you shocked at what's going on with police forces in this country? The brazen attack on police officers by Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other revolutionary groups, and the failure of local politicians to whom they report to protect them and defend them and to protect and defend the citizens of these communities? Is this not shocking?
It is shocking. You know, even before the events in Minneapolis, I was speaking, since I became Attorney General again, about how in a full employment economy, which we did have and we will have again, that we have to be careful because policing is becoming a very difficult and dangerous job. And you have to, in order to attract the best people there, you have to be supportive of them. And I was worried about the vacancy rates and the fact it's hard to keep police in many of our major cities. And then we had this turn of events where they've been demonized. The fact is, generally speaking, we have superb police in this country, very professional forces. And you know, these events do happen. We have over 600,000 police in this country, and there will be some instances of excessive force. But by and large, it's an excellent police force, and if they're going to be demonized like this, they're not going to work in these cities. So maybe there'll be a self-correcting mechanism. If communities don't support the police, they're going to have a hard time getting police.
And they're going to depopulate these communities. They're going to leave. Governor Cuomo the other day was begging millionaires and billionaires to stay in New York City. I don't think cooking dinner for them is going to it's going to replace safety. Let me read something to you. Gatestone Institute, International Policy, about Antifa. I don't think people really understand Antifa. And they say, empirical and anecdotal evidence shows that Antifa is in fact highly networked, well-funded, has a global presence. It is a flat organizational structure with dozens and possibly hundreds of local groups. And by the way, the oldest group is in Portland. They say Antifa's stated long-term objective, both in America and abroad, and it got its birth in Europe, England, then Germany, then the United States, is to establish a communist world order. And by the way, this information is put out. It's not like we're conspiracy theorists or so forth. In the United States, Antifa's immediate aim is to bring down the demise of the Trump administration. It's an attack on capitalism. They say they're attacking fascism when they're Marxist fascists, such thing, to bring down the Trump administration. It's interesting that one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter said that one of her focuses is to bring down the Trump administration. What is it about the Trump administration that stands in their way?
Well, I think they would be, you know, generally for bringing down any administration. They are a revolutionary group that is interested in some form of socialism, communism. They're essentially Bolsheviks. Their tactics are fascistic, and your description of them is consistent with what I've seen. With the Trump administration, you know, a lot of it has been the demonization of the Trump administration from day one. I went back and I watched his victory speech after election night. People should go back and look at it. It was very measured. It was a very statesmanlike speech. He offered the olive branch. He praised Hillary Clinton, thanked her for all her service to the country, talked about working together to make things better for the American people. That was the day he won, and from that point forward, there's been the resistance. They were trying to impeach him from day one. They have done everything they can. They've shredded the norms of our system to do what they can to drive him from office or to debilitate his administration. And I think it's because of the desire for power, that the left wants power because that is essentially their state of grace and their secular religion. They want to run people's lives so they can design utopia for all of us, and that's what, you know, that's what turns them on. And it's the lust for power, and they weren't expecting Trump's victory, and it outrages them.
You know, in this document, this research, they talk about the roots of Antifa in the Baader-Meinhof gang in Germany and other really violent, radical organizations in the United States, similar to the Black Panthers, similar to the Weather Underground, except they're more networked, they're better organized. They seem to have more ammunition of sorts to use against police officers and so forth. And apparently they get a lot of their funding online. I have to believe that our agencies and so forth are really trying to construct some kind of scenario about what we're dealing with and how to undo this. Am I close?
It's a form of it's a new form of urban guerrilla warfare. You know, Mao Zedong used to speak about the guerrilla being like fish swimming in the ocean, the way the guerrilla moves through the people. The guerrilla hides out among the people as a fish in the ocean. And what they do is they are essentially shielding themselves or shrouding themselves in First Amendment activity. They go into the demonstrations, which are exercising First Amendment activity, and they insinuate themselves in there to shield themselves. That's where they swim. And what they do is they hijack these demonstrations and they provoke violence, and they have various tiers of people from the sort of top provocateurs down through people who are their minions and sort of run the violent missions. But it's a difficult phenomenon to deal with. They're highly organized at these demonstrations, and these tactics that they use are designed, and the way the media responds to them, of course. The media doesn't take footage of what's happening. They don't take the footage of the rocks being thrown.